back in this morning. On the way home, I went by the properties while I'm reading.
Oh.
See, at least I wasn't texting while I was driving.
That's good.
I was reading a book.
Anyway,
I just only
Thing is that there's no place in Ferndale that can go over 25 miles an hour. 35.
They look like you're hearing together.
something.
This is.
Hi, Bob Porter.
Hello, Judy. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Not bad, but I can get over it.
Okay.
I'm in a fog world. There's nobody was short of people at work. I was there till midnight. Went back in at like 8 this morning. Viewed properties on my way home.
Oh, I know. Today's my only day off, so I was like, zooming.
This is enough to make my hair fall out, you know?
Okay, this is crazy. Why can't wear it?
I saw that look. I tend to be casual with these things up there.
No, I'm just kidding.
You should just do the rest of it.
You know, I have a friend actually.
Oh, you know,
Has known
you
you
know,
there.
no, you know what?
I mean,
though?
I just
He doesn't
shave
do
this
much.
down
He only does it for me.
every week or so.
Yes,
But a friend of mine, he's got about as much hair as I do, and he's got a ponytail.
I just say that because
Whatever works.
Yeah,
Whatever you want to do.
if that does it
okay.
for
He
you.
does stuff for me. He comes at my house at midnight to leave my door
It's
locked.
about that
Scares the
time.
crap out of me.
You ready?
Yeah. Hey, you're running the show. I have to be ready.
A good guy.
You know me, I'm pretty casual.
Okay. It comes up like this, and then you just tap on it. That's why I do it that way. But we did get
here,
a
right here.
This is
revised.
the one that locks it from going back.
No. I'm
It's the
talking
up and
about
down.
this.
Oh, I think.
You know? It's like, oh, let's hug it.
There's something.
No, you're fine.
Just straddle.
Who cares?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Well, that's already open, so we're okay.
I don't have to live here.
None.
Thank God. I think this is.
I mean,
Yeah, this is probably Renlon's seat.
That's what must be it. City of Ferndale Board of Zoning Appeals meeting is now called to order. It's Tuesday, August 15th at 7 p.m. First item is a roll call.
Okay. Commissioners Pollica,
Here.
Williamson,
Here.
Palmer,
here.
Moore. Here. Stedman,
Here.
Porter,
Here.
Colson,
Here.
Deasy.
Here.
Next item of business is the approval of the agenda. Is there any discussion or questions about the agenda this evening? A motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Support.
Moved and supported. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Next item of business, approval of the minutes from the previous meeting of May 11th, 2017. Discussion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Williamson,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Stedman.
Abstains, I wasn't here.
Okay. Porter,
Abstain, I was not here at that meeting also.
Colson,
Abstain.
Deasy.
Abstain.
Oh dear. Let's see. And Palmer.
I'm sorry.
A musical answer on her behalf.
Yeah.
Here. Yes.
And me, yes.
Motion.
Did I forget you?
Yeah.
Greg.
Greg.
In the case of the agenda, the motion carries. Next item of business is the public hearing. We'll be starting with 361 Wordsworth, followed by 465 East Lewiston Avenue. The procedure this evening will be as follows. The individual who is called at the particular time will come up and make their presentation as to what their concerns and reasons for the variance is. The city will then respond to that. We shall then go into an open public hearing. If anybody wishes to respond, they may do so. If there's nothing left to speak about at that point in time, I'll close the public hearing and it will come to discussion of the board. I will ask that if there are questions of the board, I will ask, by the way, when you come up to speak, that you go to the microphone so we do have a proper record of your voice. And during the discussion period, if the members of the board should ask a question regarding your particular property, would you please respond by going again to that microphone so we have proper record for you, okay? Public hearing, 361 Wordsworth Street, shall now be open. And I shall have you come forward and present your reasons for the variance.
Good evening. I'm John DeBona with Specialistic Construction. I represent Mr. Grobe and his daughter. He has a young daughter that was run over in front of her elementary school by a H2 Hummer and sustained traumatic brain injury. As a result, she's got some cognitive issues. There is some occupational therapy report that's getting passed around along with her doctor's report. And the problem is that we have to keep her contained. She does not escape from the egresses of the house. So we wish to extend the present fence system across, bring it up across the driveway and in front of, so the door will be in the back of the fence, the side entry, so she can't escape with a lockable fence, and the 4-foot fence won't work. So we were going to keep with a 6-foot fence across there. So we're asking for a 2-foot fence height extension approval.
Will the city respond?
The applicants also did provide one copy that can be passed around of just a medical professional opinion on the need for the fence. We just had one copy, just received it today, but Barb, if you want to pass it around, or whoever has it at the time, in case you need it. But just past conversations with the applicant have just been about height. This fence, a lot of the fence requests we've typically seen at the previous meeting, and then also just in staff or in City Hall as well, is just usually has to do with a fence that extends beyond the front yard. This is not one of those cases. This is in relation to fence height only. The applicant cited safety as a unique hardship, and then provided the medical opinion as backup. So not really a rebuttal, just more information. A couple of people did call regarding just the public notice, because it was sent to 300 feet around the property. Not for or against, just wanted to get more information. So.
I don't need to do this, I don't think, but I would request that if there's any member of the audience that wishes to respond to the request to come forward at this point in time. Seeing none, the public hearing shall be closed. And now to the board. Are there any questions?
Yes, through the chair. It's just coming up to the side door. Is that correct? It's not going to the front of the house.
No, it's just coming up just past the side door, so the side door will be in the enclosed fence area.
So driveway across. Okay. Thank you.
Confirmation, 27 feet from its current existing location, 27 feet forward.
That's correct?
That's the door entrance on the west side of the house, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Question for Justin. Do we have any record of us supporting this in the past for any other resident or for any other reason of moving it in front of the door?
Not that I saw. Everything, all the past requests have pretty much been, can I put a fence in the front yard? So we haven't seen a lot of fence requests, at least since I've been around.
Except the last meeting.
Yeah, that one.
That one was different. That one was different. Yep. Well, I can also say that since I've been on the board, I don't remember anything like this. So I think this is going to be something new to us.
I would like to say, and this is actually from a personal perspective, those of you that know me know that I was supposed to die in 1984 as a result of traumatic head injuries. I understand partially of what it's like Some of it I don't remember at all. But my abilities and ability to control myself and my emotions for a period of time were simply not there. And I was a mature adult that supposedly was getting along in the world. So I understand fully the type of situations involved, types of things that can respond without any notification and become somewhat aggressive or uncontrolled and so forth, with no fault of themselves consciously, but simply because of what's happened to the brain. And I believe that what we're looking at here is something that's extremely unusual. I think the reasoning for or justification for something of this nature is well qualified. Any further discussion?
Through the chair, I also would want to point out that this is possibly the most narrowly tailored solution to this problem that the applicant could have come up with. The fence or the gate front, which will be slightly above what the ordinance requires, is still going to be 14 feet back from the front of the house. And it is, if you look at the drawing, literally just on the other side of the door. So this is not this isn't a major change to the existing fence, and really isn't going to be much of a change to the existing view of the home from the street. You're still not going to have a fence that's going out even really very close to the front of the house here.
I agree. The request is minimal to meet needs.
Through the chair, I also agree that it really isn't going to be like a front fence, because it's still going to be that far back. And being on the driveway, it's not like it's going to be blocking somebody else's view or something like that. I think that's when we have a problem with these people that want to put us on a corner lot or something like that, where they want to go 6 feet all the way around and cars can't see. This is not going to be obstructed. It's not going to stop the airflow. It's not going to do anything that I think, and this is a unique circumstance that we really have to consider.
I agree. In seeing the property, I reviewed, those specifics, and I didn't see where it was closing anything off as far as air and light and so forth to any of the neighbors. And protrusion to the front was minimal for the needs.
Should we decide to do this, we would have to put some kind of stipulation on it. Was because of the unique circumstances, the medical situation. Am I correct?
Well, I think that should be stated. I mean, it's there's always somebody that wants to find a reason to justify doing something, and I think the thing that makes this an acceptable issue is this is something that's unusual. There's not going to be people running to the podium and saying that we have a justified cause for this. But it should be spelled out in the motion as to the reason that the variance might be given.
I agree with this, with the comments presented. I can see someone saying, "Oh well, my dog jumps, so I want a fence that I can let them out, off the side door, but high enough so that they can't jump over the fence." That's a completely different situation and completely unacceptable. But I agree, we have to see something about the medical hardship is really what this is.
Any further comments or discussion?
Yeah, I'll just add that for the same reasons that Mr. Pollock has said, that under the ADA provisions, that were we to deny this 2-foot variance, the burden would be on the city to prove that it greatly changed the character of the area, and so I think that's what distinguishes it from another similar situation.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, well stated. If there's no further discussion, a motion would be in order.
I'll move that the Board of Zoning Appeals approve the dimensional variance to allow a variance of 2 feet from the required maximum fence height of 4 feet at 361 Wordsworth, Sidwell number 24-25-34-426-024. After a public hearing was held to set and published for this date and place, motion accompanied by the findings set forth in the packet, and specifically that the board has found as a unique circumstance here the medical needs of the family, which are certainly not self-created and require this unique relief.
Is there a second? There is support. Any discussion further on the motion? Hearing none. Oh, excuse me.
Sorry, that was a long one. Was hardship put in there? The word hardship? Okay, gotcha. Just making sure.
I heard you,
Hearing,
Judy.
Okay, you know what I mean?
hearing no further discussion. Roll call, please.
Polika.
Yes.
Williamson.
Yes.
Palmer.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Steidemann.
Yes.
Porter.
Yes.
Colson.
Yes.
Deasy.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Good luck in your endeavors. Where that brought up emotions needed, I had forgotten.
The ADA.
What?
Discussing it.
Oh, yeah.
Believe it or not, that's why I got involved in it. Needed my head examined. Yeah, it is. Actually, therapy. I mean.
The one down here.
Next item on the agenda will be the public hearing for 464 East Lewiston Avenue, looking for a side yard setback variance. Will you state your name and present your reasons?
Mr. Porter, my name is Clinton Hubble, and I'm one of the two property owners at 464 East Lewiston. My wife is Emily, and this is our application here for a dimensional variance from the side yard setback requirement of 5 feet. Now, this is kind of a tough act to follow. I do not have anything nearly as necessary for a person's individual safety as Mr. Grob did. So, but this is sort of a different situation. We are looking to add on to our house, which has occupied the same footprint in the middle of the south side of the block between Leland and Bermuda since 1926. It hasn't changed at all since the structure was built. It has, for our particular family, expecting a third baby, the 1050 square feet of the house with the Jack and Jill bedroom was just not cutting it for us anymore. And so we are looking to expand it slightly. And we submitted an application for building permits, owner pulled building permit from the city, and the response was no problem necessarily with the plan for the addition itself, except for your house is classified as an existing non-conforming structure with regard to the setbacks from the property line, which now require 5 feet. And if we measure the spaces between the houses there in the middle of the block, including eaves and overhangs, we have just less than 4 feet between the eaves and overhangs between the houses on each side. So we had a couple of different designs made up for an addition, which we want to have include a bedroom upstairs and a kitchen downstairs. So it would add another bedroom and a slightly larger kitchen to our house. And the easiest and best way to do that would be to continue the wall of the house that runs along what would be the west side of the property, back into the yard. The original drawings also had a mirror image deck on the other side of the addition. It would be on the east side of the addition that we would add later. But if we were to pull a permit for that, we would run into the same setback problem on the other side of the yard for the deck. So we are asking now for a variance from this 5-foot setback requirement because of the unique character of these 5 houses in the middle of our block. If you go down sort of either way, west or east, on our side of the street, you're going to see kind of wider clearances between the house and driveways. And we're just simply in a small group of houses in the middle of the block that don't have those, don't have a driveway or wide clearances. We're on the 30-foot wide lots. And so after trying a number of ways to build, to design a different addition that would kind of clear both sides, it is possible, but it would increase not only the expense of the addition itself, but also the usability of the floor plan, particularly on the first floor. And those were the problems that we ran into with that. We really did need to keep the line into the basement, which goes down the center line of the house, kind of in the same place. If we were to change or move that was going to increase the cost of the project significantly. So it requires essentially this 16 by give or take 3 feet rectangle along the west side of our property would be the issue, is the barrier to us building this. I could go through a whole application. I don't want to bore anybody other than that. Like I said, it's a lot less romantic than the last application, but I'm happy to answer questions or anything else anybody has.
Response from the city, Mr. Lyons.
Just not a whole lot of response. The minimum side yard setback is 5 feet. That was put in place at least in 2010, probably earlier than that. But that was primarily just due to fire safety. So we do have a lot of existing non-conforming situations in the city. I think at last measure, the average lot width in the city was 33 feet. So this lot is narrower at 30 feet, which is certainly a challenge. And so that was kind of cited in the application as well. But as far as comment from the public, I also just received one phone call that was just more of, what does this all mean? What is a setback? No comment on for or against, but happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Thank you. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to respond to the request?
Only one in the audience.
Seeing none, public hearing shall be closed, and we shall move to the board. Any questions?
Actually, you asked me a question, sorry, and now I may be correct. I need to ask, is there an alley?
Yes.
There is an
Yes.
alley? Okay.
Yeah.
This is one of the open alleys.
It is a drivable.
It's a drivable
Yeah.
open alley between East Lewiston and East Camborne.
It's unpaved.
It's unpaved.
It's rutted.
But there is some alternatives as far as access for safety, such as police or fire, should it be necessary.
Yes. Yeah.
Through the chair. Justin, are you saying basically it's the fire thing that we're dealing with?
That's the history of why the side setback is there.
From the 3 to 5?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we've had a few of these requests, I guess, at least since I've been here, and that's always kind of been the issue, is the fire code requiring 5 feet, which led to the change in the zoning ordinance.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there talk when we were doing the last MLUP that we were looking at going back to the 3 foot?
We talked about more of lot width, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, especially for this district, R2, we talked about, I can't remember off the top of my head what the lot
I know,
width
I
is.
can't,
Yeah,
for some
yeah,
reason,
yeah.
I know that the conversation of 5 to 3, 3 to 5 came up during that time, but
Yep.
that was a 2-year conversation that
We talked about a lot,
I'm still
right?
trying to overcome.
And the last time I had spoke with the fire marshal, he was still old and strong with 5
5.
feet. Yeah.
However, came up where it was a cantilever portion that made it closer to less than 5 feet? Is it they had to have fire retardant walls? Is this because it's that much closer that we have to be?
Yeah, I think that there is some extra fire rating. I would have to lean on my building official for.
Yeah, I'm 90%,
Yeah.
99%
Yeah.
sure that that side of the house would have to be fire retardant.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you're not going all the way across now, right? You're just doing that 16 foot or whatever.
That's right. It's the footprint of it was 16 feet by 13 feet, and if any, I thought about this fire issue as well. You know, and going through my wife and I drafting this application, and you know, if you think about it, I think it actually alleviates the fire access issue a little bit, because right now, as it is, you can't get a ladder between these houses. I mean, there's no way. I mean, you're not going to get. I mean, if a fireman has to pull somebody out of the second story of one of these houses, there's only two ways to do it. You're going to go through the very front, or you're going to go through the very back. I mean, you're not going to get to the second floor from the side of one of these houses. They're just too narrow. This addition actually goes out into open air a little bit. So you could actually access, there's a window on the western wall, the eastern wall, and the southern wall. You can actually access the second story now from the addition, where you can't access the second story meaningfully from the side at all right now. So, you know, there'd be just another entry point for a ladder to the second story with the addition, where right now there isn't one. So,
Let me add to her comment. The last time that was dealt with, I believe, by the board was damage that had happened to a garage, and his ability to rebuild the garage. The garage would have been within 3 feet or something of another adjoining building, property next to it, and the findings found that there had to be the appropriate fire deadening materials, or burn times for doors and things of that nature in order to accommodate that.
Okay. I just remember one on Leroy where they were building a second story, and it was cantilevering out, and it was too close to the lot line, and so they had to do the fire retardant wall and stuff.
Okay. I'm sorry, you had it.
I just wanted to clarify. It seems that you're asking for variance just on one side, but in the drawings, you have a proposed deck that looks like you're going to be back here again asking for a variance on the other side.
right.
Are you asking for one or two right now?
Well, I'm hoping that the variance will be granted for both sides now, but I'm not going to request a permit to build the deck right now because we can't afford it. So right now I'm just looking to actually build the addition and build the deck later. But when I apply for the permit for the deck later, I'm going to run into this same issue on the other side of the house. So if we could either say, depending on what the board decides, yes or no for both sides, that would actually kind of make things more efficient, going forward. So I wouldn't have to come back for a second variance on the east side.
To continue, having lived in Burndale now for over 10 years and actually lived at 3 different properties, and 2 of which I did renovate while I lived in them, have you considered, this is a hard question to ask, right? Have you considered a different property that's a little easier? There's quite a bit of difficulty in adding on. In some cases, it's actually easier to just move and buy exactly what you want, ready to go.
You're right. And trust me, my wife, being the person she is, has exhausted all options. I told people we bought this house in 2008, and the price was just great, and so now we're enjoying all this ton of equity, all this great stuff, relatively small mortgage payment. We love Ferndale, but nowhere to go. We'd sell this house, and there's just no inventory to, go down the street, go to the first block off Woodward instead of the second block off Woodward kind of thing. I think it just seems like Ferndale, the way property values are, even, cities around us, that a lot of people are faced with this decision, love it or leave it kind of thing. And we're kind of forced into loving it at this point because there's just not inventory to leave. And, so we got to upgrade. We got to take care of the space we have. We got to upgrade the space we have, make it more efficient, more usable. And that's just sort of what we're faced with. I think our equity could maybe buy us another property, but it wouldn't be an upgrade to the house. It'd just buy us the same house, just somewhere else, you know. So we like Ferndale, and we'd like to stay here anyway. So,
Through the chair, what's the hardship between having a 9-foot 7-inch deck as opposed to an 11-foot 7-inch deck?
there is no hardship except for just the lines of the design, but on the deck side, there is not the same thing as on the west side where we're trying to make a contiguous wall. The deck just doesn't have that, so there isn't that same type of design hardship. We have a lot more wiggle room with the deck than we do on the other side, so there isn't, essentially. Same issue, but also I don't know that it's also got a similar fire issue though as the big, if you're doing an addition. The west side addition, the actual house addition, has this fire egress problem possibly, but the deck wouldn't have that same problem. So it would that's more of an aesthetic and more of a design thing, but it doesn't interfere. It doesn't create a hardship to put the deck back a foot or two. It just doesn't.
Through the chair, if I may. The planned addition, does the side along the lot line, does a new addition, how do I want to say this? How do I say this? Run along any of the existing house next door? Or does the back of your house currently line up to the back of their house?
You're saying it right.
Okay.
That's exactly what's happening. That's
Okay,
why-
so the addition won't actually come into contact with any, not contact, that's not the right word.
It's not
but
going to shadow it at all.
It's not, thank you, shadow, okay.
No, it goes back into the open area between the lots. It doesn't. It's not going to, continue one of these narrow corridor kind of thing. The house next door, lot 149, has an addition, and it's a second-story room with a stairway that goes up to the second floor. It was part of the conversion when they made that property into a two-family property. But that's the only thing behind that property. So the corners of our
But that's kind of
houses-
like in the middle
That's in the middle of the house.
of the
yeah.
house. Gotcha, okay.
So, but the actual corners of our houses are, pretty well in line. The back.
Through the chair, if he's asking for two variances, and we've already agreed through Mr. Williamson that I think it's important that the deck be a non-issue, or that side. And I say that only because the deck can be adjusted. So I think that the variance would only have to be on the west side, that we would have an easier time of deciding on that rather than going both sides.
I think she's bringing something out that's really a good point. If you're asking for both, consideration of the board based on legalities and zoning law and so forth and so on, could go a different way than if you're just asking for one. One is something that relates to the living, the family, the welfare structure of the house and so forth, where the other is not. So you may wish to consider either simply asking for the one, or, since it was on here, asking for both.
Well, and like I said, I'm not asking to permit the deck right now. And that was just simply part of the drawing right now. So if I can sort of withdraw my request kind of in the record here, that side be, that the variance be, the dimensional variance be granted on the deck side, because that really can be handled later. The critical thing is the west side, is the wall side. And so if the board would just consider that one side, I think you're right. It could make it easier, because frankly, the element of necessity, for the deck being exactly the same width of the house, it's just not there. That's more of an aesthetic thing. So it's not necessary for us right now.
Okay, let me be clear, though, that just making that concession response does not guarantee anything in the other fine. As
Understood.
board members review
Sure.
what's necessary in order to determine yes or no on something of that nature,
Sure.
that still is under consideration.
I think it makes it easier. I agree. I mean, when I was drafting the application, it makes it easier in my mind, too. I don't think we're in substantial disagreement about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Through the chair, so I'm kind of flipping back and forth between 15 and 32. And I'm trying to understand, so on page 15, it shows that the peak of the house is in the middle of the house. But on 32, it looks like the peak is going to be offset now to the left. And I'm wondering, is that going to be connected straight through to, it looks like you have like a, I don't know, we'll call it a dormer, I guess?
Yes.
On the left. So now, not only will the first floor be within non-compliant, but the second floor will also be non-compliant, correct?
So there's that span of feet, span between the north side of the dormer and the back of the existing house right now, where there would be that would also be part of the wall. Now, part of that wall is already there, though, and so as we talked about that as well when we were going over the drawings, part of that wall already exists. The dormer portion of that wall exists right now.
No, I think that is probably.
So you're saying there's no protrusion from that area coming out any further. It would simply be a continuation of the straight line.
It could be a continuation of the same wall line. Yeah, there's no additional, I mean, other than the short distance between the back of the house right now and the back of the dormer.
Roof line up higher.
That would be an existing, or that would be an added wall, but it wouldn't come out any further or change the line of that wall whatsoever.
I mean,
You're saying the peak is going to be changed to here?
no, the peak is going to be changed. So this is the back, right? This is the
Yeah.
center of the house. This is the old peak here. So when they take it out,
Is there a question at this point?
Trying to get
so they're going to continue the roof line higher. So the roof line is
So
going to
just,
go up. It's going to be double
Yes,
left.
but I don't know if it.
You know what I mean?
I'll just
So
pull this
what
out.
he was saying is that this
I haven't
is
connected
now going to connect.
feature of that yet.
Going
Oh,
to
right.
he said this dormer.
Viewed it as one, but it was stated almost as.
This dormer here.
I just wanted to
So this roof is going to keep going up.
That's why
Now the sun's going to be here.
I think what they're looking at is
Yeah, it should be clear.
All the way
It
through the
was.
dormers now. So it's going to be substantially more like block
This?
light.
no, what they're looking at is
Second
the
story close
second,
together.
they want to see the second
Because you
floor.
know what, you're right. He doesn't have
They
any.
take
There's a bigger picture here.
There's no upstairs.
Yeah, that photograph there.
Yeah, it's coming right
So-
off the top.
You can point to this.
Oh, great. Okay, yeah, thank you very much.
So maybe start with 32 actually.
32.
15 and 32 between the two of them. You can just
this
go to
one
the
is
page and just type
page-
in 32.
Right here.
Yeah.
There's only 29 pages.
Oh.
It's not
Okay.
the full thing, so let me see. I don't know if that shows it slightly better.
Dormer straight back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that dormer,
Makes sense.
that exists, this wall right here exists now, and then the addition would be kind of here.
So you're going to extend that
plus
wall.
Yeah, so it's ideally, that's where we're going to put a bathroom, and then the addition on the back right here would be where there would be a kitchen and a bedroom on the second floor.
Yeah, because the drawings don't show anything about the second floor.
Right.
It only presents us with the first floor.
Yeah, I guess that is it. So maybe if I can,
Are you coming out to the end of the house for the whole addition, or are you staying with the front dormer size?
yeah, it's the same size as this existing dormer. with
Gotcha,
this-
coming straight back. It's not
Yeah,
going
it's-
to the
it's-
edge of the house.
An additional, I think it's 10
So it's
feet
in a few
or
feet.
11
Can you
feet.
go to the back view? Then it's probably like maybe slide 28 then. It was well towards the end.
Okay.
Oh, that would have been it.
Let me see if I can scroll down here.
Because right now the peak of your house is right in the middle of the house.
Yeah, you're looking about the roof
There it
line.
is.
I see, yeah.
So now
So yes, it's off center. The peak centers on the addition instead of in the center line of the house. The peak before is like right here.
Yeah, so if you could scroll up just a little bit. So now, as you can see, where that dormer was, it's going to be a solid wall, non-compliant, all the way to where the dormer was.
Mm-hmm.
And the house is going to be much higher on that side.
So the dormer comes up to about here, and it adds a full height.
Yeah.
So the dormer is 5'9", so it's about like that. And then just the upper stairs portion of the addition would be like a full height. That's how it's been presented to me. And that would be for about the back 10 feet of the house, I guess. Something like that. Or it's 11 feet and some change. Yeah.
What's the height?
The total height? This is, there's a foundation, so it's a partial over-under. The foundation is 40 inches. That's just the existing foundation. And this right here, like that space, that is, I think it's 16 feet, 8 inches.
Right, so if you go to the peak, it's over 17 feet?
From the ground or from the bottom, from the foundation? From the foundation, it's not.
It's
I
not?
don't think that is not 17 feet.
Oh, okay, because that was,
But it is from the ground, though, yeah.
because
from
isn't
here
it
it is.
17 feet the max?
The maximum height in district is 35.
35, thank you.
It's R2.
Just wanted to make sure.
So I don't know how to stop clicking on things here, sorry.
Through the chair. So one thing that I think you probably sensed in the last case, right? And you said it yourself. You're like, boy, that was tough to follow, right?
Yeah, right.
Sometimes things just instantly, like, very, very clear it's a hardship.
Sure.
And that's the point of this committee, right? And,
Sure.
and like I said, having had to go through zoning blocks that were frustrating, was one of the reasons why I wanted to do this, right? And I'll never forget one of the first meetings, actually probably my first meeting, Ian said, one of the core competencies of this committee is not to write policy. Like our job is not to write policy, right? Our job is to look for very unique circumstances where nobody wanted to happen, it just kind of happened, and we're trying to like alleviate some pain, right?
Sure.
And so the problem is, if we pass this, unlike the last case where you will have that one person that's like, oh, my dog's going to jump, but
Right.
it doesn't pass the smell test immediately. It's like,
Right.
no, get out of here.
Right.
This is a case where the minute you get this, there will be 29 other people who want something similar, who all have similar homes, because Ferndale's, a lot of them are very
Sure.
close, right?
Sure.
And so there's no way to defend against giving all of them that same variance, right, if we do it for this one. And in that case, we're in essence writing policy which should be decided by City Council. And so, or the Planning Commission, I'm sorry. So I think that's where I need you to really help me, like how your situation is more unique than the 29 other people who have very similar houses. And again, I feel it's very exciting to have these plans drawn up.
Sure.
It's amazing, like you get the idea and the train starts rolling. But I just need help understanding how this is like a true hardship, right?
So, and I can't give you like I can just tell you what we have. And so we have a growing family, and sort of made it this investment, and it has just become, untenable for our particular family. So it's not a situation where I'm like a property developer or even somebody who's just wanting to, improve the property just for the value that would bring. We actually want to live in this house and for a long time. We have one bathroom. There's soon to be 5 people in this house. A lot of people did that for a long time, so I acknowledge that. This sort of would make it a lot easier for us in our day-to-day life to get by. This is not, and that's why we kind of didn't go overboard as well. I mean, this isn't by comparison, there's sort of a house around a block over at Leland and Breckenridge. Brand new, beautiful. They tore that thing right down, the first floor, and it is, they rebuilt it from the bottom up. It's taller than this house, or this proposed addition, and it's gorgeous. But, I mean, that would be even way more than my family, could ever need. Like, we wouldn't, that's not something we would even want to try to do. So we felt this was, the footprint of this is a couple hundred square feet. I mean, this is not a ungodly large kind of thing. And it's designed to make our family's life, a little easier. And that's what it's for. Is it a hardship? Is it curing a hardship? Well, my wife and I certainly think it does. But objectively, I mean, I don't know what the standard is. So if it is in comparison to the last case, no, we do not have somebody who has extreme special needs who this would directly, help. That is not something we have. We're a pretty run-of-the-mill family with fairly ordinary needs, and this would just make that living easier and make our property more usable. And if you were looking, to not set policy, I actually think it's pretty easy to get past that. These houses, I do think, I don't mean, if you've lived in Ferndale, especially if you've owned 3 properties in Ferndale and upgraded them, pretty much everything there is to know about these small lots. But I know a couple things about them too, and ours is smaller than most. So this is not. We've lived 8 years no driveway, and we have a 18-inch walkway down one side of our house, and that's the only way to get in the backyard. So it's making the property more usable, and I don't think, and given the other things that are going on in our neighborhood, this seems directly in line with them. I mean, I don't think you're cutting new ice with this. It seems, pretty in line with what's going on in the hood. So I don't know that I would agree that granting this kind of variance in this situation with the circumstances of our family and this particular lot is cutting any new ground or is stepping on the feet of the Planning Commission or the City Council at all. I could be wrong. I mean, that's your judgment to make, not mine. But yeah, it doesn't. I don't get there. Is what I'm saying, I guess.
I ask one more, and then I promise I'm done.
Sure.
I've clogged a lot of time today.
Sure.
I'm sure the plan was already discussed, but what was the problem with having the entire space, the deck and the room, used for the room, and then a deck put behind that? Did that?
What was the
Well, I'm just
design
saying,
consideration?
if we don't, if we can't grant the variance, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted, let's say you said it was 200 square feet, you said a couple.
So it's
let's
13 by 16, whatever that
Yeah, whatever that. So we'll say.
shakes out to.
I mean, what's to say you couldn't build your 200 square feet within the variance and then put your deck behind that? I know that obviously there's some costs in not running the wall straight.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little bit of additional cost, but was there something blocking you from doing that? Is there an ordinance that I'm not aware of that doesn't allow you to do that?
So this is just my understanding. Now, I'm not talking authoritatively. My understanding is that we're not permitted to build out into the yard a certain number of feet because of the sanitary line situation. There's a sanitary that runs into the alley down the east property line. There's also a Y connector in the middle of our yard from the old low-side sanitary system that we are not permitted to build over. Like they won't let us build out over that.
How
Just
far
kind of what
out
I
is
was
it?
told. Sorry?
How far out is it?
I think it's right past the edge of where you see that concrete at grade rectangle.
So it's just in front of it,
Yeah.
towards the alley?
That's right. Yeah, so it's
wow.
kind of right out there, and I don't know what the reason. Right now, there's also a non-conforming. see if I can, the patio in the back is also non-conforming. I just have to find the, sorry everyone, this thing here, this concrete thing, you don't want to know what we call it. This concrete patio back there, that also does not conform from what I'm told. But you know, it was there when we bought the house. But there is actually a sanitary cleanout that goes right down the middle of that concrete thing. Right in, it's right where the C is, right there, where the hand is now.
Goes east to west or north and south?
Goes across the lot diagonally.
Oh,
So it goes from here, like across here, like, and connects into the sanitary somewhere out here.
Well, then, I guess my question is, how can you build on top of it?
Well, I guess what they can do is remove a portion of it that is going to go under here. It's not working, I guess. It's not operational, but for some reason, unless we dig out all of it, all the way out into the yard, we can't build on top of it. So I think we're planning to dig out the portion that's like the small portion that's like, I want to say it's like, just there's a piece of it like right here that would be dug out as part of the addition. But then we just leave the rest of it. It doesn't need to be dug out.
Just further than that, it's not existing, it's not being used?
It's the
old
old low side, it's the drains that came out of the basement, the floor drains in the basement. And they were replaced they were capped and replaced in 2005 or 6 with a PVC sanitary that goes out the side of the house this way.
Yeah, so that
and
would be
back.
existing. Justin, what do you have to say?
I don't know. This is all conjecture. I'm not speaking authoritatively on this. I just was told that if we were going to build back here, that would increase the cost significantly because we'd have to go down, dig up a hole like 9 feet in the ground, reinforce the hole with like a framing so the hole doesn't collapse, and dig out this old sanitary line and cast iron sanitary line. And you know,
It's
if I
9
wanted to
feet
do it.
down, why?
Yeah, I don't know either.
It didn't really come up in our conversations. I can't speak on it. The building official that the applicant worked with is actually working in Ann Arbor now, so we have a new building official. But so I couldn't really speak on
Well,
that. It's something we can
Bob,
evaluate.
Do you remember
But
anything like that? Do you remember anything like that?
No.
Me neither.
I was trying to think about it.
Yeah, Bob and I were on the main committee, and we were told about every sewer line in the entire city.
Yeah.
And I granted it was back in 91, 92-ish, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, the point being is that I don't remember anything like that. If it's not existing or being used and it's 9 feet down, I don't know why you would be.
I
mean,
guess
really,
not,
that's why
yeah.
I went to Justin. Why would he be required to dig up something that's 9 feet down? He's not even
I
gonna
agree
touch
with you.
it.
By the way, I would rather not spend the money to dig this thing up.
Yeah.
You know, trust me.
if the application were denied tonight, and that were to be found out, I don't know if past board members might know, if that were the case, that I found that out from the engineering department, would he be able to come back, or is that a...
We'd have to make that a stipulation.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Could be stipulated, or we could table the motion.
We could table it
For
until we
30
know more.
days and-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if we approve, or if we deny tonight and then it's discovered that there's a different hardship, he would have to pay the fee again, wouldn't he? As opposed to if we tabled
Table
it,
Doesn't
then there wouldn't be the fee while the investigation went through.
either way, because that
We
could
can,
be
we
part
can
of the
remove
motion.
the fee also. We're allowed to.
Well, that's true too,
Yeah,
yeah.
so.
We could do that.
But I guess I'm going with what Mike was saying. I did a 2-story addition on my house. I'm going to go backwards on this. I have a different lot size totally, so that doesn't matter. But I centered it, knowing that I needed some kind of more room on one side than the other. And it worked. But you're saying you can't center it, because I think that's what you were going at. Bring it in, maybe on both sides, forget the deck, go the deck out the back, which I don't think that sewer line's going to be affected by a deck that you only need 42-inch footings at 9 feet down. So, but anyway, I would see if you could redesign it also possibility and not have to go through a variance. Because if you do it within the codes that were allowed, it works. We don't have to be here.
Right. So we did. This is actually the third iteration of the drawings that we did here, and as I understand it, the problem was that the basement stairwell comes up right in the middle of a centered addition, right? Because
Is it at your
basement
back
stairs
door?
turn in the back of the house, and so if they're going to come up into the kitchen space, we make them go straight up into the kitchen space as opposed to turning. If you center the addition, it puts the stair exit right in the middle of the usable space. So it's possible. I mean, you can do it, but it's kind of
So you
obvious.
can't leave the stairs where they are, and then just
That
come
was
off
the
of that?
that was the, yeah, and that we tried a bunch of different things with this, and that was a problem too, because that made the what would become the dining room space only something like 6.5 feet across or something, which was, you know, it just didn't jive with the floor plan. That's all.
I guess I'm envisioning across the back being the kitchen and the second floor being the bedroom. And where the connected is, you can add the bathroom if you choose to. That's up to you. But I'm just saying, that would just make us fancy. That makes sense to me. And if you bring it in 2 feet on either side, you're okay.
Yeah. I mean, we could design around this. We have some monetary issues with doing that. But I mean, that's part of the. If we want to call it a hardship, I don't know. We're kind of just getting by with this, you know, doing it this way, and this was kind of the sort of the narrowest way we could conceive of kind of doing what we wanted and also making it affordable. So that's where it kind of lands for us anyway.
Through the chair, one of the issues that we have to wrestle with here is that the zoning board is what's called a quasi-judicial body, which means that any decision that we make then sets precedent for everyone who comes after this situation, and they can rely on the decision that we make today to justify their own request, not just in front of the zoning board, but also in circuit court if we don't give them a variance they want and they decide they want to take the city to court to get it. That means that when we're giving a variance, specifically a dimensional variance like this, that allows someone to encroach into a setback, if we allow someone to encroach into a setback like this in a very real way, we're taking the existing zoning ordinance that says there's a 5-foot setback and saying, well, really, there only has to be a 3-foot setback. Because once we make that decision, then everyone else who comes afterwards and wants to have that same 3-foot setback is going to be able to cite this situation as precedent. And if we don't want to give it to them, they can take the city to court, probably with a decent degree of success, sue to get their shortened setback, to get their variance. And then the next thing you know, we've got the developer who is doing the giant house that you're seeing over on the other block, except that giant house now is only this far away from the neighbor on the property line. So we understand and appreciate your situation because all of us live in Ferndale, and we all have these lots. I did a renovation on my house recently, and I'll tell you, my dining area and my kitchen is probably about 5 feet. It's tight, but you know, it's the trade-off I make to live in Ferndale. You know, it's to have that house, unfortunately, on a small lot, and unfortunately not having the space I'd like to put in it. But because of that, because we are setting precedent here that can and will be exploited by people, not people like you who just want to have something that's a little bit bigger and a little bit nicer for your family, but will be exploited by the builder who's coming in saying, I'm about to put a $479,000 home on this tiny little lot, and because I now have something I can latch onto to push out into these setbacks that the city council has decided we should have, I'm going to do it. That's really what we have to be concerned about.
So I'm an attorney, so I understand about the precedential value of these decisions, but I think that's why the ordinance, puts in this hardship requirement. I mean, I think it's easy to, and also that it's a unique condition to the property. And that's one of the elements of this. It's not it's not a matter of this is what I want, give it to me or I sue you, kind of thing. If a developer does that, or if a homeowner who is kind of aggressive with this sort of thing does that, I think they still have to get through the administrative side of this board and prove to you that go through the elements of the ordinance, just like you're doing with me here today. And I think that a case like you're talking about would be pretty easy to identify for you. You would pretty clearly say we've got to tear down to the studs, 3 walls are remaining. We want to build a 3,000-foot house on a 5,000-foot lot, kind of thing. That would be pretty easy to spot and take out just using the elements that are set out in the ordinance. But I'm not trying to exploit the ordinance or something.
Nor do we think you are.
Right,
but as an attorney, I think you probably realize that that when the hardship is that the lot is narrower than we would like it to be to fit that specific property on there, it's going to be very easy to make that same hardship in many, many lots in the city of Ferndale.
Right, and if they came to you on a case-by-case basis and said, this is my family situation, this is what we're doing, this is the economic conditions, this is what we have to deal with resource-wise, money-wise, we can't do more than that. It's either this or live with it or leave. It's easy to go with, this. But if somebody says, we want to, we're retiring, we want more space, or we just won the lottery, so we want to build a giant house on one of these small lots just because we like downtown Ferndale or something. And that's easy to see that that's not the situation, where that person trying to exploit the precedent is going to get a lot of traction. I'm not trying to predict, what would happen with that, but at the same time, yes, they could cite this, I suppose, but it seems in my mind that this is quite a bit different than that. And for a circuit judge or whoever hears this to say, look, the case of the Hubbles in Lot 150, you for all time, gave up your right to say no to the lottery winner with the 4,000 square foot house. I don't think that's a thing.
Let me say this, if Judy, excuse me.
Yeah.
We're talking about some issues. You're talking about financial cost here, but you're talking about setting a precedent that allows things to intrude into different areas. And he mentioned it earlier. I remember a few years back where somebody had an unusual circumstance and location and wanted to enlarge a garage. And it was a very rare circumstance, and there was a justification for that because of the way a lot came together and so forth and so forth and so forth. But as a result, just by hearing that had happened, do you know how many people wanted to have bigger garages all of a
sure.
sudden?
I bet. I mean, I'm not discounting.
And they weren't, and for them it was just a simple thing. They've got a new snowmobile and they wanted space to them. It was just for the life of the family and so forth and so on. So we have to be very careful when we examine the laws that have been set down, zoning for whatever the reason, whether it's fire or safety or whatever, to enforce that. If there was a situation where the pipes, as you talked about,
right.
and these pipes were there, and this deterred you from digging into this section here, and you had to go here, and now you've got a problem with your house without being able to. Now there's a distinct difference that is not something that anybody can use as a precedent to draw into, not just the dramatic 4,000 square foot place. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We have to be aware of that because we are restricted in many instances to the size of these lots. We want people to be able to develop as much as they possibly can to have the room to keep families in the city and so forth and so on. But we also have to be concerned as to the welfare of that community and what that does over time. So
Sure.
there's no judgment against you or anything
Oh,
else.
sure.
I mean,
See, I
it's
don't
being
take
looked
it
at.
personally.
Yeah.
I understand. I appreciate what you're saying, and you're not wrong. I'm just, I empathize with that position, and I know that is not. You're trying to look beyond this case and into the next 40 that try to come along and say, they want the same thing or even more. And I appreciate that. That's a decision you'll make, not me, I suppose. I promise not to take it personally. If you tell us no, I hope you'll say yes. If you say no, we'll go back to the drawing board and we'll try to come up with something else. While you're considering it, though, just know that we have gone to lengths to try to make this work otherwise. That is not the way this is shaken out, and that we're not of unlimited resources. So redesigns are expensive, as are alternative plans. So a different plan for a different structure. Any way we redesign at this point, the price goes up. That's just for us. But I appreciate your limitations. Like I really do. I know the nature of an appellate, panel being different than, the ground level like the trial court. So I appreciate that. You're looking out for the cases that come after. So I got you.
Understand.
Yeah. So understand. Yep.
Any further questions?
I think just needs to decide if he wants to table this to find out more about his
Yeah, do you
pipe
want-
situation, or
Yeah, Mike, that's a good thing, yeah.
Okay. And that's a key question at this point.
Sure.
We can vote, make a finding this evening,
Yeah.
and still technically give you an opportunity to come back if we found some dramatic problem in the pipes or this or that did really cause some justification. We could table and give you 30 days or 60 days, whatever worked and so forth, so that we could verify that there was a particular problem and so forth.
Sure.
And then you could bring it back to us at that time for consideration with no additional cost to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Or we can put this out of its misery, and you can vote, and then we can. I'll go back to the drawing board. I'm happy to do that. I really am. I'm happy to. I'm happy to take this off of your plate. If this truly is the problem, potential problem that's been identified here, I'm not sure that whether I flush out this low side sanitary line problem, that's going to address that concern, at least adequately for this board. I'm going to come back here and say, no, we're good with the pipe situation. I'm back on the original application for the variance. Can we vote on that, please? I don't know that I'm in a better situation at that point
It's true.
that if I go and try to flush out this other issue. I'm looking at if it's denied here, I have to go back to the drawing board on something or other, I suppose.
Then as I understand it, you would prefer that the board goes ahead, makes its decision with the notation that you would have the right to come back without an additional charge if it was truly found there was a problem there that may justify.
Okay, it sounds like that's where we're leaning. So why don't we do that? Table it. Look at the drain issue. If it's not, maybe just consider the original application again.
Through the chair. I'm still trying to understand, what is your true hardship? I guess that's where we're coming from. We, as a pseudo-judicial board, have to find a hardship of why we should give you a variance. And so far, I don't see one. I'm not even going to tell you that the pipe underground that's not being used is a hardship. I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not sure. But
Yeah.
I still am trying to grasp onto what is the hardship.
Yeah. Well, and as I said, I'm not sure that, if what I've said, by just regurgitating what I've already said is going to convince you.
No. I'm just saying, can you give me specifically one or two items that makes it a hardship?
Sure. Cost. number one, to my family specifically, not objective cost. Like, this is, what we've set out is what we can afford. Changing it, we probably cannot. That's number one. Number two, hardship. There is not really another way to go in this property just because of the nature of this property. And it's not just that it's a small lot. It's that it is smaller, narrower than the average or even, what I would consider one of the narrower lots. It's got very narrow clearances. So, I mean, those are the hardships to us. If you want objective hardships like the last case, you're not going to find one. We just don't have that. That type of situation is not something we're trying to correct for.
Okay, we have kind of examples of hardships that can work. A financial burden is not a hardship because that's a choice of what you choose to spend.
Sure.
A hardship of that lot. That lot's been like that since 1926. You bought it that way. That's something that can't change. So that's why it's hard for me to wrap my head around it being a hardship. I hope everybody understands where I'm coming from on this because we just need a hardship. And those two things I don't think would help us.
Yeah, and I'm not going to convince you.
So, all right,
It's
so
a
then
hardship.
that's my point. So if you're going to come back to us with the same situation and just address the drain pipe, that's really I think it's a non-issue because it's so far down. I'm not sure that you're going to go in any other direction if you can't help us out with figuring out what your hardship is.
Mr. Pollock, if you would.
Yeah, well, and I want to go off of that pipe. Even if you investigate further on the pipe and the contractor says, well, we can take the pipe up, it's going to cost an extra $5,000, what have you, that's still not a hardship, unfortunately. If they said we can't do anything with the pipe, then it becomes a hardship. If because of something that's located underground can't be moved, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe if it's, it would cost $150,000 to move or something, or the city has to move it. That's a hardship. But yeah, unfortunately, hardship isn't a reason.
Well,
I understand your situation. I have a 33-foot lot, and my lot line is my house sits 2.5 feet from the line. I'm not going to be able to build out because if you get a variance, guess what? Because I'm gonna ask for the same thing, going back off my house.
Oh, we got to stop this now.
There you go.
And as much as I would love to approve it based on just what has been presented, I have to be honest, I can't.
So let me just say too, I'm looking at the ordinance, and I think that what I'm asking for, the only place that it's talking about hardship is in this number 6. Number 5 talks about the plight of the applicant. I don't know what plight, really means in this context, but it says that the plight of the applicant results from special or unique circumstances peculiar to the property, not from general neighborhood conditions. Okay, that's the hardship, I guess. That's where we're getting this hardship thing from. So this is not, that's not where hardship, number 6 says hardship. It says number 6 is the alleged hardship has not been created by the applicant or any person having a current interest in the property. So I think what would have to happen is that if that's where we're gonna go with hardship, you can't justify it, financial any amount. It doesn't matter if the pipe is $150,000 to pull up out of the ground. That is not what this contemplates. What it contemplates is something that is unique to the property and that has not been created by me. Or me, us, the property owner, I guess. And so, we purchased the house subject to whatever the setback requirement was in 2008. No getting past that. Our family situation was also quite a bit different in 2008. So, also the financial condition of this area was quite a bit different in 2008. So things changed out from underneath us. So that's what we're trying to address with this. Not that we're so bad off, that this board has no choice but to unanimously say that we have a hardship. But like the last case, I was trying to vote for him. But this isn't that. But is it special or unique? All the properties in Ferndale, Councilman Polika can say, living on a 33-foot lot. If that was the case, okay, I think this is important. If you're going to say, I live on a 33-foot lot, so this can't be unique to the neighborhood, why would a variance ever be granted? Because if anybody, because all these problems are, not unique to their neighborhoods. Ferndale is very similar, uniformly similar neighborhoods and lot sizes across the entire city.
Well, actually, they're not. I would argue that
they're
because
not.
you're 30, I'm 33.
I'm 45.
You're 45. They are so different.
Let me
The
change it. How
lots
about-
on each side of mine are
50
33.
foot on the other side of Pinecrest. So,
And they're all
you know.
different on every street because, the houses on each side of me are 33, but if you go to the house next to it, it's probably about 40, and then 3 houses the other way, it's about 60.
Let me change this. Let me change it to this then. You're correct. So I have friends who are on bigger lots than me, who live in the city. I'm talking maybe more in my what I would consider my neighborhood. Aston, Bermuda, and Camborne, R2,
No,
kind
on
of
your
our
street,
area.
closer to Woodward, they're 30 foot.
Well, that's Ian. I don't know what.
Yeah,
What
Ian,
are you
closer to
30?
Woodward,
Getting
right
down,
across
yeah,
the street
yeah.
from you, there was a house for
And
sale,
they're
didn't have a driveway and didn't have alley access.
Oh, the blue house? Oh my God.
But it didn't have either, at least.
Yeah,
you have
it doesn't
alley
even have
access.
alley access. You could build a garage if you wanted to.
And it has one-side parking. I think it has to be a non-driver that lives there.
Yeah, that would have to be
Yeah.
somebody who likes
That was weird.
biking. So, but these properties, they share some similarities across them. Ferndale is a small community. It's not a
There's a
giant
lot of
city.
variations.
There are some variants, for between properties, but they're not.
I can honestly say, I think I'm the longest ongoing BZA member. It's going on 20 years or more. Anyway, I don't remember ever, and I've been in real estate for 33 years, so I don't remember ever us looking at a variance for a house that was on a 30-foot lot. We have had variances for 35-foot lots, but that's when the codes changed, that 35 was more today. And it had nothing to do with the setback. So what I'm saying to you is that I don't believe we've had this, and we can't set that precedence just for you without a hardship. And I can't stress that enough. I do not see a hardship that's going to allow us to vote anything any way different today than we will once you find out about the fight. That's my opinion.
I think the point is there's questions regarding whether there's justified hardship to grant a variance. I think the board has to decide at this point if it wishes to proceed with tabling something, putting a motion on the table to approve or disapprove of the request.
I think the applicant needs some closure on this issue. From what I'm hearing, and it's sounding like the pipe situation is probably not going to end up making a difference because there is always going to be a financial question there. If someone had more resources and could drop $5,000 to have these pipes removed without thinking twice about it, then that wouldn't be a hardship or an alleged hardship for that individual, and a financial, differing financial situations don't qualify as a hardship. Given that, in order to give this applicant some direction going forward and some closure, I'm going to move that the Board of Zoning Appeals deny the variance application to allow the dimensional variance of 3 feet from the required minimum side yard setback of 5 feet at 464 East Lewiston, Sidwell number 24-25-27-451-010. After a public hearing has been held as of this date, based on the finding that the plight of the applicant does not result from conditions or circumstances unique to the property, and that the alleged hardship was created by the applicant's desire to locate the structure in a position that does not conform with the current city ordinance.
I will second that.
We have a motion, and it's been seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ducey,
Aye. I mean, yes.
Colson,
Yes.
Porter,
Yes.
Steidemann,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Polika,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Williamson.
Yes.
The motion to deny carries unanimously. I would make a statement that on behalf of this board, should something be found, pipes or that truly would qualify as a hardship because it disabled some way of building or whatever, that we would, appreciate your return and we would consider it as it is.
Sure. I think what we do here is go back to the drawing board and just comply with the 5 feet. That's just going to be the way to do it. I honestly don't see any point trying to convince somebody that, the 2 feet is going to work, or not having the 2 feet is going to work a hardship.
We appreciate you having come before the board, Mr. Hubble, and
Sure.
many of us have sat in your same shoes. We
I
understand.
understand.
We understand your struggle.
Yeah, this is what it is to live in Ferndale. I understand.
Yes.
It's a great community, but we're strapped for space sometimes.
Yes.
So, yeah. All right. Thanks. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. You too.
All right.
Where did I put that? Hold on. Let's finish this off. Is there any communications or announcements for the board that have come forward?
We have word as well. So. Okay. All right.
Any- Nothing?
Oh, I'm sorry. Are we done? Or are we?
Communications or announcements that we had? And
None from
I
me.
guess we have one.
Well,
this month.
we had just one on the agenda, and then I have a follow-up one. But we have two new board members tonight, so I thought I'd have them introduce themselves. We're happy to have a full board. It's been a while, so Leah, I don't know if you want to start, but
Okay. Hi, I'm Leah Deasy. I've lived in Ferndale for 5 years. I work in the city of Detroit currently, and I'm just at the end of my master's degree in urban planning, which is why I was interested in coming to the Board of Zoning Appeals. My professional background is mostly in affordable housing, so just for your information.
Where do you live in Ferndale?
I live on the southwest.
We
Yeah.
say streets here.
You don't want to tell me your street.
Marshall,
You
right on the
don't want us
fire
to drive
route.
by there later.
There's only
Nope.
100 streets in Ferndale.
Yep,
Everybody
right on the
knows us.
fire route. We get the fun fire trucks
Yes.
all hours of the day and night. So,
We're almost neighbors.
yeah.
Hi, I'm Austin Colson. I've been a resident of Ferndale for over 4 years now. Been a property owner for 3 years. I graduated from Michigan State with a bachelor's in urban regional planning with a specialization in environmental economics. I currently work for SmartBus. I started as a grant analyst, and then now I do federal oversight on their disadvantaged business, equal employment opportunity, and programs enforcing federal regulations. And I also do auditing of our 42 community partners of their drug and alcohol program, which is so It's not really quite urban planning. It's not really what I went and studied for, but I've been looking for an outlet, and I think this is a great outlet. And after one day, I think I made a good choice. And I thank you all for welcoming us to be part of your board. Thank you.
I don't want to sit next to him anymore.
We thank you for stepping forward to do that. One of the things that I've seen through my years here, I came through, I mentioned earlier, and maybe I shouldn't have, but the emotions of the head injuries had pushed on me a little bit. But that's what made me a volunteer to raise the money to redo our downtown and our streets initially, because I had to volunteer. I was learning how to read again and do other things. And it took me on to becoming a mayor in a city, which I was not a political person, I'll tell you.
You loved it.
It was intriguing. It really was an intriguing thing in my life and learning what to do. But it's the people that I've seen that have moved into this neighborhood and helped it develop over that period of time that have made a dramatic difference. I'd love to, any politician would love to say, well, I changed that street and everybody filled the buildings. Well, no. The people in this city came together and said, well, look, we have opportunities here and it's looking nice and we're accepting of all the different communities rather than being biased and fighting with each other. And let's step forward and do this. And this would be cool for the neighborhood. And then a few others would join and put it together. And that's what's made Ferndale a neighborhood down in an area where neighborhoods have faltered dramatically. But Ferndale has grown, and it's because of the people that have stepped forward to offer their service, their expertise, and so forth, and just their general friendliness to bring people together, because it's the people together that make it all happen. So we do thank you very much, and all those existing on the board. I would say that too as well, because sometimes you sit here for a while, and sometimes it's not super exciting. Sometimes it's unique. With the case earlier tonight was something that was obviously not a typical thing. It's something that I haven't seen in 20 years of watching things go on through here. But we were able to help them and do it within reasonable confines of what would keep that community or that area where it is today. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Justin, you had?
Oh, that's
anything
great.
else?
The only other thing I had was that, so since we have a full board, we've been talking about with the Planning Commission, and we're going to offer it to the BZA and Council as well, as we're going to do some trainings where Michigan Association of Planning will offer up a few different classes. We're finalizing what those courses might be, but probably starting a couple this fall. I would guess after work hours would work best for everyone, so we'll try and coordinate so that everybody can participate, but keep an eye out for those. So,
excellent. Any other comments or announcements that anyone may have?
I'll actually just mention, at Planning Commission, we have been seeing a massive influx of proposed new development. I recommend that any of the zoning board members that have any interest, start, even if you don't go to meetings, pull down the packet, which you can, just like you can with our zoning board packets. Start pulling down the packet for the Planning Commission meetings and just taking a look at them, and get a feel for the just seemingly massive amount of new proposed developments we're seeing, and you're just now starting to see some take off now. They've got the property fenced off across from Credit Union 1. The Wolf River development is going to go in there. That's going to be a very large residential development. The Taft project finally got approval to go up to City Council recently, so now they are probably going to start demolition, I think, on Wilson Park and also on Taft on the residential developments that are going in there, presuming they get full council approval. I think they probably will. So the city is going to, the face of the city is going to probably change fairly significantly in some areas within the next 3 to 4 years. So,
And the construction on the St. James School into conversion into a senior living is gung-ho.
Yep.
At 10 minutes to 7 every morning.
10 minutes
Real
to 7.
excited about it. Yeah. They're doing so much stuff over there. Well, we'll have to talk, but that's
sounds good.
It's bad. Anyway.
I think it's a good point. There's so many that have come forward. Livernois I've had some problems with the redesign and some things I think we need to do there. But some of the new people that have come in, the development at Axel, the microbrew restaurant combination, right down the street from there, there's going to be, is the housing project or the condos or apartments?
We're talking through a couple things with that. Yes. So, but I mean, there's another housing and like artist live work proposal across the street from that one. So, you know.
Is that Grant, there used to be the brewer at Woodward Avenue?
No, surprisingly.
Johnston?
Yeah.
Grant Johnston.
Yeah.
The spot over there.
I think he's staying busy with some other things, but yeah. But yeah, I mean, exciting time for a lot of corridors. We just need Hilton to catch up to everybody else too. But I think I don't know. I'm amazed at all the plans that come through right now. And as Ian said, if I wasn't working for the city or on a board, I would be at the planning commission meetings because I don't know. It's just exciting to see all those things happen.
I tell you what, that new place that opened, and I recommend to the Beautification Commission that they give them an award for what they did to their building. It's called the Long White Beard. Mm-hmm. They hand make custom furniture, and they opened on Livernois. Yep. And all their business was internet prior to that. People would call and say, "Well, when do you ship?" Well, they'd be doing it on the internet from Royal Oak. Well, we'll drop it off tomorrow, you know. But that went in a couple of other places.
Yep.
A place I didn't even realize existed was Detroit Wallpaper.
Yes. Yeah.
What do you think? A wallpaper joint?
Yep.
This place, right on Livernois.
Right at 8 Mile. Well, like
not
a block
quite.
north.
It's third building south of Fielding. And they create, man, I mean, Microsoft came there to do a story with them. They had other major people. You could take a picture of this desk right now, and they could have a flyer on the wall tomorrow night, and every color would match, and it would to scale. And so, I mean, it's amazing what they can do. GM goes there because they want to match some of the stuff in the design room over at the tech center, and I mean, it's amazing what they do. They've been sitting there for a couple of years and so forth. So.
Actually, they started a 9 Mile.
Then they went across
And
the
then
street.
then they went on Livernois across the street. And yeah, this is their third location.
Yep. And growing like crazy. Anyway, any other comments this evening about
If I may launch off of what Ian said, the Planning Commission meetings are now the first and third Wednesday, so there is one tomorrow. Again, yes, I would encourage you to also read the packets.
First and third Wednesday at 7?
Yeah.
6:30 now. Yeah.
Oh, earlier, okay.
I believe the first Wednesday is now just discussion. That's supposed to be
Prior
reviewed.
to the actual...
Well,
mostly,
it's
I would say mostly yes.
Mostly, yeah.
We've kind of done a balancing act with the parking development proposal and balancing, agendas with that because there's really should be nothing else on the agenda besides that. As much
So the
discussion.
applicants
that
come
happens,
on Wednesday and the board is there on Mondays?
No, it's first and third Wednesdays at 6:30 for both.
Okay.
We try to keep the first meeting discussion, but if we have enough to talk about at both meetings, we do. So.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Tomorrow being...
Yeah, and you mentioned Wolf River. If I'm not mistaken, that's the 125 unit on Paxton, right? Paxton. Paxton. And
Yeah, 127.
if I'm not mistaken, they've already leased all the units, and it hasn't even broken ground. Or is it that one that's
the Old American Legion Hall that has 8 units there? Those have all sold.
Well, I know those are sold,
Yeah.
but I'm talking about the.
They've got a line. They haven't. I don't think they've signed any leases yet for Ferndale House, but they do have I think there's 90 units there, and they have over 200 on the list.
Yeah,
So,
okay, that's
yeah,
what it is. Yeah.
That they're but they need to build something.
Yeah.
Greg didn't tell you he called in 183 times, though.
Well, inflated numbers then.
If it was me, it wouldn't look like it's looking, but
Anything else this evening?
wasn't my call.
Hearing nothing, the meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Meet you.
What was it you were dealing with the rehab programs or the